The tribunal chamber smelled like scorched alloy and pride. Warlord Darkhelm leaned back in his floating obsidian chair, tusks twitching with amusement. "They cried," he said, tapping the metal edge of the hollow projector with a single claw. "All those little white-coated humans, squealing like scaleless larvae. No shields, no weapons. Just blood bags begging for mercy." The room, a crescent of alien commanders, politicians, and technocrats, erupted in laughter. They came from 17 systems and wore ceremonial bones, glimmering silk, and floating orbs of acidic perfume. But none of them wore weapons. They didn't need them. Not here. Not in this orbiting dome above the ash ring of planet Hexer, where war was decided with treaties and wine. Except a human sat at the end of the table. Ezra Kane didn't laugh. He didn't shift. He didn't blink. Just sat with his hands folded like a doctor about to deliver unfortunate news. His hair was graying at the temples, his Earth Standard suit unwrinkled, understated. A small silver tag rested at his collarbone, a medic's emblem once common during Earth's warless century. The aliens ignored him the way you ignore a butler pouring wine. Darkhelm chuckled, claws clicking as he leaned forward. "One of your medical ships wandered too close to the battle belt. Unarmed, unwarned. My raiders had no idea it carried non-combatants, of course." He gave a look meant to mimic sorrow. "But war is messy. Tragic, really." Ezra blinked once. The ship's name was Florence. "You knew that." A silence shivered through the room. "Your kind paints red crosses on their hulls," said a lanky officer from the Zarathi Confederacy. "But in deep space, red doesn't mean stop. It means target." Ezra tilted his head, as if considering a new species of mold. "She carried 72 souls. Only 4 survived. All burned. 1 blind." Darkhelm raised his goblet, and none retaliated. "Earth is as docile as ever. Soft." He sipped. "You are a species of bandages." Ezra didn't respond immediately. He stood instead, calmly, as if he were in a hospital corridor, not a chamber of killers. His voice, when it came, was soft, almost apologetic. "There's a misunderstanding," he said. "We are not pacifists." "Oh," scoffed the Zarathi. "Then where's your war fleet?" Ezra looked around the chamber. "You assume we answer blood with fleets. Bombs. Fire. Like you. We don't." Darkhelm leaned forward, claws tented. "Then how exactly do you answer?" Ezra's gaze drifted to the view beyond the dome. Stars blinked like distant scalpels. "We send the angels." The room fell into a strange hush. A lizard diplomat murmured, "What angels?" Ezra smiled. "Just slightly. The ones we keep under lock. The ones with battlefield medic badges and no more patients left. We don't point them at wars. We point them at violations." A snort from the insectoid ambassador. "Are you threatening us with poetry?" "No," Ezra said softly, turning to leave. "I'm informing you of protocol." He paused at the archway. "You drew blood from those who mend. You'll meet the ones we taught to break." 6 days earlier, the Florence had drifted into the ruins of the Syrinx corridor. She'd been bringing cryo-vaccines to a neutral system, bright with coral moons and disease. She was crewed by medics, surgeons, nurses, field paramedics, trauma therapists, and a single botanist who had never held a weapon. They didn't see the war band coming. They weren't supposed to. Footage later recovered from the black box showed chaos under white lights. Medical beds overturned. Needles flying like shrapnel. Screaming. A young nurse with red curls using her body to shield a child with oxygen tubes. Another clip, a male trauma doctor crouching behind a lab counter, whispering over comms, "This isn't a mistake. They're targeting us." There. Then static. Ezra watched that clip once. Only once. Then burned it to a silver drive. And slipped it into his pocket. At the Intergalactic Council's lower chamber, 3 decks below the Grand Dome, a younger alien aide was nervously trying to fill Ezra's tea. The cup rattled. "You were calm for someone whose people were slaughtered," the aide said. Ezra stirred in silence. "Calm is not forgiveness." The aide swallowed. "What are the angels?" Ezra didn't answer. He was watching the news. Another warlord ship had gone dark over the Cashin moons. No explosion, no trace, just a single life pod returned. Inside it, a single wounded technician with the word medic carved into his armor. The aide's frills shrank. Was that retaliation? Ezra blinked. That was preamble. 2 days later, panic flickered across 3 star systems. The planet Kalshar, where a governor once authorized the seizure of Earth medical vessels, found its sky net fried. Every surveillance drone rebooted at once, broadcasting the same human face. A woman in black gear, calm eyes, half her face burned. Her voice was clinical. "Hello. You killed 14 nurses and 6 surgeons here. I've arrived to calculate equivalency. If you're still on world in 60 minutes, I will be too." The feed cut. Exactly 62 minutes later, the governor's palace was hollowed out like a ribcage. No civilians harmed. The council summoned Earth again. This time, fewer jokes. Darkeln wasn't smiling. "This is war." Ezra entered slowly, as if time bent differently for him. "No, it's memory. You assassinated officials. We educated systems on cost. We don't escalate. We clarify." An old, brittle ambassador with wires in her skull whispered, "They're ghosts. You're angels. They vanish like vapor. They don't show up on scans." "What are they?" Ezra leaned closer. "Once, they held scalpels and forceps. Now, they know where arteries run beneath your planetary crust." Darkeln slammed his fist. "Enough riddles." Ezra's voice barely rose. "You slaughtered our peace bearers. You thought the Red Cross was an ornament. But it's a warning. A very old one." The alien tribunal stared in silence. Then Ezra placed something on the table. A child's drawing, crumpled, smoke-singed. It showed a nurse with wings drawn in green crayon, shielding a boy. Beneath it, scrawled in shaky handwriting, "She said she'd come back for me." Ezra stood. "Now she will." The screen behind him flickered. Dozens of stars lit up red. Systems where medics were harmed. Systems where angels were en route. The Zarathi officer croaked, "You're declaring war?" Ezra turned. "No. We're reminding you who you hurt." He left them with silence, the drawing still on the table. As he walked down the marble corridor, a soldier stopped him. Young, nervous. "Sir, what if they fight back harder?" Ezra didn't stop walking. "Then they'll understand what saving looks like when we stop doing it." The doors hissed shut behind him. And above 17 planets, medics' names were whispered like prayers. Or warnings. The dropship carved through the dark like a whisper with teeth. No lights. No sound. Just a gliding blade in the void, heading toward the moon of Vellum 4. Below it, the surface shimmered with artificial calm, power grids, comm towers, and a governor's fortress pulsing with warm, innocent gold. They hadn't declared involvement in the Florence massacre. Not officially. But Earth had dossiers. And Earth had memory. Inside the hull, 6 people sat without speaking. They were dressed in matte black uniforms, no insignia, no flags. Each wore a silver tag near the heart, the old medic symbol, half-burned, worn smooth by thumbprints. Their eyes didn't scan readouts. They didn't need to. They were already inside the rhythm of the mission. Surgical. Ezra Kane stood at the front, one hand clasped behind his back, the other resting on a steel cane he didn't need, but carried anyway. A reminder. He faced them not as a general, but as something older, an usher into something precise, intimate, and final. "You all remember the protocol," Ezra said softly. "But let's say it out loud." There was no ceremony. Just 6 voices, flat and certain, speaking in unison. "Do no harm unless they harm the ones who heal. For every medic fallen, we calculate equivalency." Ezra nodded. "Tonight, we balance Vellum 4. He stepped aside. They stood slowly, one by one, and, in the dim red of the cabin lights, their faces caught shadow like ritual paint. There was Lena, once a field triage nurse in Antarctica, before the aliens came. 42 now. Brown skin, cropped hair, and a lopsided smile that rarely meant humor. She carried 2 vials in her belt, One was adrenaline, the other ketamine, and she never mixed them up, even in combat. Beside her, Eli knelt to adjust his boots. He'd been a pediatric burn specialist. Now, he handled detonation rigs. Smaller burns, he liked to say, cleaner stories. His voice had a lullaby cadence, the kind you'd trust even as your lungs filled with smoke. Reva leaned against the wall, oiling a blade so thin it could part eyelids without waking someone. She'd sewn back the limbs of children who'd been pulled from rubble. Now, she used the same finesse to dismantle warlords. Her eyes were pale, almost translucent, like her sympathy had bled out long ago. At the rear stood Moses, massive, bearded, with hands like hammers. He once carried 12 wounded out of a collapsed clinic after a quake on Europa. Now he carried a portable pulse rifle that hummed in a pitch only humans could hear, comforting to some, a countdown to others. 2 others rounded them out. Calyx, who rarely spoke but whose fingers never stopped moving, braiding surgical thread around her own wrist like prayer beads. And Joel, who had been on the Florence, whose voice still stuttered on vowels. The others didn't ask what he saw. He didn't offer. Ezra looked at them not with pride, but with resignation. "You're not soldiers," he said. "We remember," Lena replied. "Good," Ezra said. "That's what makes you dangerous." The dropship slowed. Silence settled. The doors opened into wind. They dropped like ghosts. Governor RYX was preparing for a gala when the first lights went out. The champagne bar dimmed. The violinist's strings snapped mid-note. Guests murmured. The servants vanished. Then came the tremor. At first, the security commander thought it was a moonquake. But when the guards checked the lower floors, they found no seismic activity. Just silence. Then static. Then a voice. Soft. Human. "Begin assessment." All 12 guards on sublevel 4 were found an hour later, unconscious. Their weapons melted. Their eyelids sutured shut with precision and grace. They were alive, but someone had drawn small red crosses on their cheeks. In the heart of Fortress, RYX stared at the security feed. There was no footage, just room after room, blinking red, access lost. "What are they?" RYX muttered. Beside him, his advisor was shaking. "It's not just sabotage. It's a demonstration." Then something flickered into view. Just for a second. A woman, black suit, no faceplate. Calm. Surgical mask hanging from one ear. She stared directly into the lens and raised a hand. Not in threat. In silence. Then the screen went black again. In a side corridor, Lena moved like water, gloved fingers pressing pressure points until a soldier dropped gently to the floor. She caught his body like she was tucking him in. Eli, elsewhere, carefully rewired a circuit board to detonate the moment a panic signal was sent. The switch worked in reverse now. Safety cause fire. He hummed as he worked, a lullaby his mother sang when he broke his arm as a child. "You are bone, you are breath, you are more than death." Joel walked down a hall lined with paintings. Each depicted RYX with different alien leaders. He stopped in front of one, RYX shaking hands with Darkhelm. Joel's fingers trembled. He pulled out a scalpel. He slit the painted throat. Calyx knelt in the command server room. She placed a surgical cloth on the console, unfolded it. Inside, one scalpel, one stethoscope, one EMP needle. She worked with reverence, her hands silent prayers. Above her, Moses pulled down the ceiling rig, rewiring the oxygen flow to act as both distraction and cover. "No one dies tonight unless they wore teeth when they greeted our medics," he muttered. "Everyone else gets stitches." 42 minutes in, the palace's lights came back online. All systems stabilized. No alarms. But everything had changed. Governor RYX ran. He didn't know where. He just ran. Into the vault levels, into the tunnels beneath. He didn't know why he expected tunnels to save him from ghosts. But he was used to feeling safe underground. Then he heard the breathing. Not his own. Slow. Deliberate. From the dark ahead. Then a voice. "I remember your vote." RYX froze. Ezra Kane stepped out of shadow. No armor. No gun. Just the cane. Just the eyes. You sat on the council that denied Florence protection status, called our medics an inefficient asset. Remember that, Governor? Our WIACs backed up. I didn't think they'd attack civilians. I didn't. You didn't think, Ezra said gently. That's why we're here, to complete your thought. He raised the cane. Lights blinked on. Behind him stood the angels. They weren't breathing hard. They weren't holding weapons. They looked like hospital staff on break, which made it so much worse. Our WIACs crumpled. I can't fix this, he whispered. Lena stepped forward. Good news is, we're not here to fix. Ezra gave a small nod. The next morning, the governor's palace released a transmission. It was short. Just Ezra, standing in the courtyard, hands behind his back. No officials harmed. No civilians injured. But we've conducted a correction. He paused. There is no treaty protecting war crimes disguised as bureaucracy. You knew our medics were neutral. You allowed their slaughter. Behind him, Governor Arwax knelt, head bowed. On his back, written in surgical marker, I remember Florence. Ezra's voice softened. We are not at war. We're just adjusting the dosage. The screen cut. The galaxy blinked. Some laughed nervously. Others locked their borders. Still more tried to issue threats. But none of the angels responded, because they were already gone. And above 17 systems, human satellites pulsed with new coordinates. Ezra sat aboard the ship again, reading a list. Riva walked past. New orders. He folded the paper. New names. Joel looked up. Are they the ones who shot us? Ezra shook his head slowly. No, he murmured. These are the ones who cheered. In a quiet room aboard the human outpost Alethea, a list was being written. Not typed, not compiled by AI, but handwritten line by line in black ink. Ezra Kane's pen moved slowly across the page, each name inscribed with care, like a eulogy spoken with a scalpel. It wasn't a list of the dead. It was a list of the unworthy, the ones who laughed, the ones who vetoed protection status, the ones who said they're just medics. He didn't pause between names. He already knew them by heart. Across the corridor, a soft hymn played over a low-frequency channel, an old Earth melody used to calm trauma wards. It was Riva's doing. She said the angels worked best when the song played, said it reminded them of what they used to be. Ezra let her keep it. Joel sat in the corner, sharpening his blade by hand, not because it needed it, but because repetition steadied the shaking. He hadn't slept in 3 nights, but his eyes were clear, focused, the kind that no longer flinched at blood, but still wept at certain lullabies. Calyx entered silently, dropping a new dossier onto the desk. Nesteria Prime. Confirmed. They cheered when Florence fell. Ezra didn't lift his head. Officials or citizens? Leadership. The transmission logs were smug. Add them, he said, voice flat. They've made the list. You want a surgical team or fire? She asked. Ezra's pen hovered mid-stroke. Let's give them choices. That's what they denied our medics. Outside the viewport, stars spun in indifference. But down below, worlds were beginning to whisper. Something was wrong. Something was hunting. And it didn't leave trails, it left signatures. One system found their water reserves laced with a harmless compound, one only used in Earth trauma bays to disinfect field wounds. Another colony woke to find their planetary security codes replaced with autopsy reports of the Florence crew. No blood, no threat, just memory, too clinical to be called vengeance. They had thought Earth would weep, send flowers, perhaps protest in some mild way that could be ignored by reshuffling a committee. Instead, Earth sent calculation. The angels did not wear banners. They did not march. They didn't announce invasions. They simply arrived. And things stopped working. Not just ships. Mines. The first major target was Eurostation, a floating archive world neutral by law, but funded by half the species that laughed when the medics fell. Euro stored every communication for the last 3 decades, which meant it stored the cheers, the shrugs, the silent approvals. It wasn't destroyed. It was erased. Every data node scrambled. Every memory corrupted. Every stored statement that had condoned the Florence slaughter gone. One alien scholar screamed at the loss. That was history. Ezra only said, "You edited us out of your conscience. We're just returning the favor." Meanwhile, Eli set his charges with unsettling cheer. He talked to the explosives like they were patients. "You'll go gentle," he murmured to the timer. "No suffering. Just understanding." On a mining moon called Bracken, a military warehouse burst into pink mist. No one hurt. Just everything stained in a solution known only to human medics. One used to mark living tissue during brain surgery. The message was clear. "We know where you think. We can cut it away." A report from a Lormari diplomat hit the galactic net. "They are not soldiers. They are equations. You plug in atrocity, and out comes retribution." But there was something deeper. A shift not just in tactics, but in presence. The angels didn't move like avengers. They moved like reminders. They didn't roar. They whispered. On Verthia 9, where a local governor had once denied hospital entry to a human evac unit, his estate was found empty. Not destroyed. Emptied. Every object removed except one, a stretcher with clean linens, and a folded nurse's uniform beside it. Still warm. He reappeared a week later, wandering, shaved bald, whispering triage codes in flawless English. The list was working. Ezra reviewed every update by hand. At night, he drank tea. Never liquor. "I want to taste the line," he told Moses once. "The one between restraint and justice." Moses only nodded. "That line's bleeding, sir." In one debrief, Lena spoke first. "They're starting to scatter. Deny involvement. Change names." Ezra rubbed his forehead. "Fear is the first stage. Regret is the second." "What's the third?" Joel asked, barely audible. Ezra looked up, eyes soft but steady. "Permission." They all understood. You don't kill a healer and then pretend it was war. You don't murder a field medic and call it oversight. You don't sever the hand that reached for the wounded and expect silence in return. At the next council broadcast, Ezra made no threats. He only shared footage. It was a birthday celebration aboard the Florence. A quiet one. One nurse giving a cupcake with a candle made of recycled Ford tubing. Laughing. Soft singing. One of them, the one who shielded the child, blew it out, smiling. The broadcast ended with silence. And then the screen turned red with one line. "She had dreams. You had data. We have consequences." Within hours, 3 governments issued formal apologies. 2 surrendered entire fleets in goodwill gestures. 1 species offered reparations in the form of medical aid. Ezra rejected them all. "No penance is real unless it comes after fear fades," he said. "We were supposed to learn from humans," a Plaviri ambassador muttered. "But you learn in reverse." Ezra gave a tired smile. "We watched. We took notes. And then we made a list." In the next operation, the angels took no lives. Instead, they surgically immobilized an entire command crew in cryosleep gel, posed like ballet dancers. The message: your coordination was beautiful. So is our precision. Alien leaders began hiring psychic bodyguards. Fleet security tripled. But nothing could track the angels. Because the angels didn't move in anger. They moved in memory. They weren't trying to punish. They were trying to correct. And that's what made them terrifying. In one dark chamber aboard the angel ship, Riva unwrapped a single blood-stained cloth. Inside, a broken stethoscope. The one she had worn on her final rotation aboard Florence's sister ship. She didn't speak. She just held it to her chest. Ezra passed by and paused. "Is that what keeps you cold?" he asked softly. She looked up. "No. That's what keeps me clean." Later that night, Calyx finished compiling new names into the list. She found one that made her go still. She circled it in red. Ezra entered the room and caught her gaze. She didn't say anything. He read the name, paused, then closed the folder. "We go at dawn," he said. "Because some names don't just belong on the list. Some names rewrite it." The stars above Draxon Prime glittered like broken teeth. From the bridge of Ealathea, Ezra Kane stood in silence, hands clasped at the small of his back. Behind him, every member of the Angels sat or stood at their stations, waiting. No ceremony, no speech, just stillness. A projection hovered before them, an alien council archive glowing with old light. Every frame a face, every frame a vote. The screen showed the moment when the motion to recognize the Florence's neutral status was rejected. 12 votes against, 8 abstained. Only one alien voted in favor. He died. The next day, heart attack. Or so the report said. Ezra's voice broke the silence, low and surgical. What do you see? Eli leaned forward, eyes flicking across the data feed. Bureaucracy. Moses shook his head. Permission. No, Reva said. Disinterest. The kind that lets a girl bleed out in a triage tent because someone didn't file the right form. Ezra nodded. That's the wound. Calyx folded her arms. So what's the scalpel? Ezra turned. Today, the briefing was short. No tactics. They didn't need them. The Angels weren't deploying to a battlefield. They were deploying to an archive world, the Citadel of Oaths. A world that stored every alliance treaty, every code of war, every ethical resolution. Neutral by law, sacred by tradition, which made it the perfect place. Because Earth's war was not about blood. It was about betrayal, the kind that wore a diplomatic pin. The dropship didn't cloak. It didn't sneak. It flew in with surgical lights blazing, medical emblems glowing white-hot on black hull. It didn't declare war. It declared audit. The Citadel's outer defense grid locked on, then paused. A moment of confusion. Earth's hospital ships had always arrived like this. No weapons. No aggression. They didn't know the difference now. They would. The ship landed with a hiss on polished stone. Ezra stepped out first. No armor. No weapon visible. Just the cane. Just the badge. Security officers surrounded them in seconds. Non-lethal arms. Standard response for diplomatic incursion. One alien, a pale-skinned Hishari, shouted, "You are in violation of Galactic Code 72B. You cannot enter this sanctum without clearance." Ezra gave a small, polite bow. Incorrect. Under 72B, subsection C, any race may submit a formal entry for emergency review of medical sovereignty if one of their declared neutral assets has been violated. The Hishari blinked. We're here to file, Ezra said. The guards hesitated. The Angels walked past them. They entered the hall of accords like surgeons walking into an operating theater. No bluster. No banners. Just gloves pulled on, breath steady. The hall's AI flickered in protest. Unauthorized presence. Please submit treaty credentials. Calyx uploaded something into the mainframe. A document handwritten in ink. The title, the OETH. The AI paused, then dimmed. Ezra turned to the delegation chamber. It was already filling. Representatives from dozens of systems pouring in, alerted by the breach. Some indignant, some intrigued, most annoyed. Darkhelm arrived last. He swaggered to his seat, tusks polished, armor glinting. You bring assassins to a court of law. Ezra gave him a tired look. We brought reminders. The chamber lights dimmed. Earth had submitted its petition. The hologram that appeared was not of blood or war. It was of healing. Nurses stitching wounds with broken thread. Field surgeons cauterizing stumps with plasma torches. Medics singing lullabies over dying soldiers, both human and alien. The video lasted 4 minutes. Not a word of narration. When it ended, Ezra walked to the center of the chamber. In our history, he began, the Red Cross meant neutrality, mercy, sanctity. It was a symbol honored even in the darkest centuries of Earth. But we forgot to teach the galaxy why it mattered. A few murmurs stirred. Ezra turned slowly. So when the Florence burned, we didn't just lose people. We lost assumption. You speak of neutrality, said a Zarathi emissary, but you've unleashed covert operatives across our systems. Assassins, spies, terrorists. Ezra's voice didn't rise. We sent consequences. Measured. Surgical. No children harmed. No innocents touched. Just the ones who made themselves deaf to the cries of the wounded. You're undermining order, someone barked. No, Ezra replied. We're restoring it. He held up a small metal box. Inside, dozens of burned medic tags, recovered from the wreckage of the Florence. This, he said, is the true cost of your indifference. Darkelm sneered. So what? You expect us to bend because a few healers died in crossfire. Ezra walked slowly toward him. You still believe this was about revenge, he said. But it wasn't. Darkelm stood, taller, stronger. Then what? Ezra lifted his eyes. It was calibration. And the chamber shook, not from impact, but from the Citadel's core, its information banks, suddenly unlocking. Calyx's virus had finished its cycle. Screens lit up around the walls. They began displaying logs. Not Earth's. Theirs. Every intercepted message. Every private vote. Every smirk-laced comment from commanders, diplomats, smugglers, generals, celebrating the Florence's destruction. Footage rolled in real time. The galaxy watching its own ugliness on loop. Someone screamed. A Farland noble fainted. Ezra stood at the center of it all. Unmoving. You thought we were mourning. You thought we would stay quiet. That's what you count on, isn't it? That mercy means silence. That healers don't carry ledgers. Moses stepped forward, voice like stone. You thought wrong. The chamber guards drew weapons. Pointed them. The tension was sudden. Absolute. Ezra didn't flinch. Fire, he said gently, and your own treaties become lies. The guards hesitated. A high-ranking official, shaking, lowered his weapon first. The others followed, reluctantly. From the ceiling, a panel opened, dropping a banner. It was white, marked with blood. Not fresh, not human, alien. Those are yours, Reva said quietly. We returned them. Ezra turned back to the council. We don't demand reparations. We don't demand apologies. All we ask is truth. Publicly, loudly, and completely. Darkelm snarled. You want humiliation. No, Ezra whispered. We want understanding. Or what? Ezra walked back toward the angels. If you fail to declare, he said, then Earth's oath becomes Earth's law. And with that, the Aletheia sent its final signal. High above, a formation of ships decloaked across 17 orbitals. Not warships. Not bombers. They were satellites, each designed to beam broadcasts into every major system. And they began playing the tapes. Of screams. Of silence. Of healing hands broken in wartime. The truth. Unfiltered. Undeniable. In every home. In every station. In every stronghold. A galaxy forced to watch itself. Ezra stood in the storm of it and closed his eyes. Not in triumph. In mourning. Again. After minutes, a councilwoman stood. Her hands trembled. I vote to condemn the attack on Florence. To enshrine Earth's medics under protection status. One by one, others stood. Dozens. Then more. Darkelm remained seated. Jaw locked. Ezra walked to him. Laid a single folded paper on his table. It was the original Hippocratic Oath. Translated into 17 languages. You still have a choice, Ezra said. Darkelm looked up. Is this a threat? Ezra's smile was faint. No. It's a diagnosis. He turned and walked away. The angels followed. Not rushing. Not looking back. Behind them, the galaxy whispered. For the first time, not about Earth's weakness, but its standard. Its silence had ended. And, in its place, doctrine. By the time the angels reached orbit, the vote had passed. Unanimously. And in the deep black beyond the stars, the medics of Florence were finally written into law. Ezra opened his notebook, flipped to the back, and crossed out a name.